Hello. Good, good afternoon. I want to warn you from the start that this is the first time that I'm using Keynote, so there are a lot of weird animations in here. My name is Ives van Hoorne. You can find me on Twitter under the name CompuIves. And my name is quite hard to pronounce. So I'm used to all different kinds of pronunciations. You can call me Ives, you can call me Ives. My friends also have trouble with my name. They call me Flip. If you want to call me Flip, that's fine as well, as long as it's one of those names. I am the co-founder of CodeSandbox, and I'd like to know who of you have heard of CodeSandbox before this actual talk? Wow. How many of you have used CodeSandbox? This is absolutely crazy. This last time that I gave a talk, I didn't have a beard, by the way, and now I'm giving it, and wow, I've never seen so many hands. That's so cool. I wanted to give a demo. Well, I'm still going to give a demo. That's my favorite part, actually, of the talk, but it's not really needed. So hello, this is CodeSandbox. It's kind of like your code editor, but the new part here is that we have a preview. And you can change code, and it will update the preview. And that is really important. Then the other important part is that I can press fork, and I get a new URL. I can make my changes there, and I can share it with other people. So that was in very quick flight, the demo. But today is a pretty big day for CodeSandbox, because today we are officially turning 5 years old. Bas and I, we announced... Yeah, although it is a bit fake news in there. So Bas and I said, we're gonna release CodeSandbox on April 1st. And then the day before we were thinking, isn't April 1st a special day? Oh, right, it's April Fool's then. So we decided maybe it's not best to release something on April 1st. Maybe people see it as a joke. So in reality, we released it on April 2nd, but in our hearts and minds, it's April 1st. And what happened since then is pretty amazing. We started this as an open source project 5 years ago. Now we're a company of 29 people working on CodeSandbox, which is absolutely crazy, something we never have imagined. But also on CodeSandbox itself, we now have 25 million sandboxes created on CodeSandbox by a ton of people. And these are the beautiful sandboxes. There are also very smart sandboxes in there. But it's absolutely crazy what has happened, and we never could have imagined this. So I want to thank everyone here, because you've all used CodeSandbox as well, for supporting us so far. But I'm not here to talk about CodeSandbox itself. I'm here to talk about something else, something we started working on about a year ago, called CodeSandbox Projects, and we released it 2 weeks ago with a waitlist still. And CodeSandbox Project is a complete rewrite of CodeSandbox. It's something that we've been working on with the whole team for a very long time. And during this talk, I want to talk about why we actually did this, because it's a bit of a crazy idea. You should never rewrite something, right? How it actually, what it actually is, and how it works. Sometimes my clicker doesn't pick up, and how it works. So, to really understand why it started, we have to go 5 years back and a bit more, when I was a web developer for an auction website. And at the time, React was fairly new. React was like something that people haven't, just started trying. And at some point, I was on vacation to a place called St. Ives, and I got questions from my coworkers about pieces of React, and they sent me snippets on Slack. And I was thinking, I cannot do anything with this. I don't have this V8 compiler in my head. In fact, I couldn't really parse the codes. So I started thinking that can go better. Is there a way that you can have a development environment always available? And of course, like many ideas, you don't do much with the idea. I think you all recognize this. So instead, I started going to university, started studying, and mostly the partying instead of the studying. But at some point, I felt a bit unproductive. So I started to pick up my notebook and saw this idea and thought, this is worth pursuing. And together with Bas, we started building CodeSandbox, which we then released later. But these were the starting images. And it's pretty interesting to see it's going a bit fast. It's pretty interesting to see how it evolved over time. It started really as a component editor, then it went to an NPM builder, then it went to an online code editor. And the big learning that we got from this is that no matter what idea you have, it's worth working on it because the idea will get refined. And I see a lot of people, I hear from a lot of people that they say, I don't want to start working on it because the idea is not good yet. But I think that all ideas start out imperfect, and when you iterate, you actually learn new things and improve the idea. So it's really important. That's something that I want to, one of the most important things from my talk, actually. So we released it on April 2nd, and we were fired up. We pressed this big tweet button, did the production deploy, champagne everywhere, and the overall response was 6 likes. It's even worse, because those 6 likes, they were all from my high school friends. None of them knew how to code either. So we were kind of in a bit of a stuck situation at that moment. So we asked ourselves, what now? And I was reading this marketing book, actually, and there was a statement in there that really stuck with me. And the statement is, it's better to have 100 true fans than 10,000 people who like you. It's better to have 100 people who really like what you build and talk with other people about this than it is to have 10,000 people who just like it and just look at it, maybe use it from time to time. And we started with this. We started to do all the unscalable things. We started to talk directly with people. Crazy, right? We started to send emails to people who use CodeSandbox, asking what they would like to see. We even started to go implement features that people asked for. And CodeSandbox was very flat at the start, but it slowly started to pick up this way. And that's also a learning for us, that you should focus on the unscalable things. But during this process was also a nice side effect that we learned a ton. And we could have never learned all of these things if we hadn't released CodeSandbox. So that's the other thing. It's very important to ship early and ship often, because CodeSandbox, we were quite lucky. It was used for different things than we initially imagined. So the first learning that we got from this is that people learn to code using CodeSandbox. And this is such an impactful learning for us. It's now also our highest value for CodeSandbox, that we make it easier for people to learn how to code. Because imagine if you don't know how to code, and you want to build a website, maybe with React. The first thing you have to do is learn what a bundler is. What is Next.js? You have to learn about the terminal. You have to choose a code editor. And those are the exact things that you don't spend the majority of your time on, unless you really like to configure bundlers. And some people do. So that is frustrating, but if you have something like CodeSandbox, you can go to a link, and you have an immediate environment running. You can literally edit the white text, and it changes in the preview. That's the immediate dopamine shot that you get. And that's like a taste of how coding can be. So that's really important. The second thing we learned is that CodeSandbox is not only used by developers, but it's also used to collaborate between designers and developers, because you can now share a development environment. You don't have to ask a designer, hey, install this NPM version, this Node version, just to see what you're working on. You can now just share a link and immediately get feedback from a designer. And the other one is that, and this one hurt a bit, people want to use CodeSandbox beyond prototypes. We initially built CodeSandbox to support small projects and prototypes, because that's where this real collaboration was happening. But when people start prototypes, sometimes these prototypes turn into bigger projects, right? And what do you do then? And someone working on Excalidraw noticed this as well. How many of you do know Excalidraw? Oh, that's also quite a number. So Excalidraw is a whiteboarding tool. We use it all the time. And what the cool thing is about Excalidraw, it started on CodeSandbox. It started as a prototype on CodeSandbox called Excalibur, I think, created by Christopher Shadow. And many people started to really riff on these ideas of Excalidraw. But as Excalidraw grew, wow, words, it started to become bigger and bigger. It started to go on GitHub, and we started to get feature requests that we couldn't easily accommodate. Things like, can you run post-git commit hooks? Or we are using locally this version of ESLint, you are using that version of ESLint. And you would see discrepancies between the local development environment and CodeSandbox, which is a no-go. That is something that is very tricky, because if someone is working locally and someone else is working in the browser, well, you want to see the same thing, otherwise you can say, it works on my machine, but it works in my browser, and you get a bit of a discrepancy. So, we were thinking, could we even enable CodeSandbox for big projects? And the next question, could we enable CodeSandbox for really big projects? And there were some challenges. The first one is that we store all files in Postgres with CodeSandbox. I know this sounds crazy. It's the most shameful thing, but I was surprised how well it scales. It scales really well. Postgres is one of the most amazing technologies I've used, and we have over 200 million files in there. But the challenge is that when you change files in the sandbox, in the editor, you have to sync them back to Postgres. What if you do a git checkout? Do we have to sync all those changes back to Postgres? That is the real blocker here. And the one other thing is that all code runs in the browser. And right now we run it in the browser and it makes it fast, but if we want to run everything in the browser, we cannot make assumptions on optimizations anymore. And for example, you would have to download all the node modules of the project. And imagine if you just want to see a project and you have to download 800 megabytes of node modules to your browser. So it felt, we tried a lot on this, and it felt, it didn't feel good enough to pursue this. So the next question is, well, we went to the drawing board, and we asked ourselves, can we enable the flow of CodeSandbox for any project of any size integrated in your existing workflow? And kind of the next question that we had is it even possible to make servers fast? And I want to show a little demo, and then I want to show you describe how it works. But this demo is of CodeSandbox Projects. Fire. Shall we do it again? Okay, once more. Okay, let me see. So, and when I go to my second tab, this is CodeSandbox Projects. Maybe I should make it a bit bigger. This is CodeSandbox Projects, and it feels very much like CodeSandbox, but the big thing is that this works with much bigger projects, and it's directly integrated into Git. So this is very interesting and unique about CodeSandbox. Every branch has its own URL, which is shared between people, and its own development environment. So if someone else would open the main branch, actually a coworker of mine now has the main branch open, you can see each other, you can collaborate. So let's say I'm working on a feature branch and I have a question for my coworkers, I can just share a link to that branch to people, and they will see actually running code with a running dev server, and I don't even have to be online if they are looking at the code. So what we do when we press fork is we create, well, I'll just press it. And in this time, we create a new branch, we run yarn install, we do the dev server, we create the dev server, and then you get a completely new environment. Although this is taking longer than expected. I'm prepared for this. So let's say you're back on CodeSandbox and you press fork. And this is the amount of time that it should take. I hope that the other one is now finished. But in this time, we do the yarn install, we do the yarn start dev, and we create a new environment. But as you can see, CodeSandbox Projects is still in beta, and we have a waitlist. So there are some kinks that we sometimes have to iron out. Or it could be the internet connection. I'm not 100% sure. So the question that we have on, maybe at the end of if I have time left, at the end I can do another demo and hopefully it will do the fast fork. But the question that we have, is it even possible to make servers fast? And according to the video, yes. But maybe no. You can also say maybe, and every senior developer would always say, it depends. And that is because we are cheating. And we're using a property of CodeSandbox, of servers, that actually we heavily utilize. And that is that servers can store state. And sure, browsers can store state as well, but servers can store a lot of state. We could have a cache of 8 gigabytes on the server and reuse that. And in the browser, that would be more challenging because then you would have to download 8 gigabytes of cache to your browser before you can even use it, which defeats the purpose of having such a big cache. The other thing about CodeSandbox is that we always start from an existing branch. And this is a really important property. So when you start on the main branch and you want to work on a new branch, you don't want to have a new development environment from scratch, right? You work from the existing main branch and work from there. And this is a really important property because the question is, could we maybe just copy everything from the main branch, because you're literally taking an existing main branch and you build a new development environment based off that branch. So the question is, can we copy the disk? But that would still not be super fast, right? If we copy node modules and maybe the next cache or the Webpack cache, then it still takes time to start the dev server. And if you're using Webpack 1 and there are more people than you expect using Webpack 1, then it cannot even use the cache. So it would still take like a minute to start up. So the question is, we kind of just have to copy all the things. But what does that mean, all the things? And this is where some new technology comes in that I am extremely excited about. It's called Firecracker. Fits with the fire. And what it actually is, it's a virtual machine manager. So Firecracker can run for you a virtual machine. I can tell Firecracker, start a virtual machine that runs Ubuntu for me. This is great, but the real interesting property of Firecracker is that it can serialize memory. Meaning that if we have a VM running Next.js, and we're happy the Next.js server has started, then, bloop, you can make a snapshot. And that snapshot is its disk state and its memory state. So with this snapshot, you can start a VM again, and the next server doesn't have to start. It's actually already running. It's kind of like closing your MacBook in one place, and you go to the other side of the world. It doesn't really matter where you go, actually. And you open your MacBook, and you don't have to restart the dev server. And that is such an interesting property. Let's say you have a dev server that takes 10 minutes to start. With this, well, you still have to wait the initial 10 minutes, but then we make the snapshot, and from that moment on, you never have to wait for a dev server to start again. You never, when you create a new branch, you instantly have it available. When you start a branch from a snapshot, you have it instantly available. And so you can even have multiple VMs starting from a single snapshot. And this is how CodeSandbox works. Well, sort of. We're still testing this a lot, and as you can see, we need to iterate more on it, but we've had some really good results with how we use CodeSandbox, because we've been using it for our own development. So let's say you have the main branch. We create a snapshot of it when it's ready. And then when you want to start a new branch, we copy that snapshot, and we use that for the new development environment. And it will kind of continue where it left off in the main branch. Now, this takes a couple seconds, and we thought this can also be faster, because it's still quite expensive, right? You have to do a complete copy of disk, 6 gigabytes, memory, 8 gigabytes. Every fork would be 14 gigabytes. So the other approach, the next approach, is that we directly start a branch from the original snapshot, and then only for the changes that we make, we save new data. So let's say you make a fork of the original branch and create a new development environment, then only for the files that you change, we save those files, which is so interesting. Forks now become extremely cheap for us, because if you make a fork and you only change like one file, we literally store a single file, maybe 500 kilobytes, and then the metadata is bigger than the file itself. And this is how Firecracker could enable us to have a development environment per branch, which enables workflows like, for example, if you're working on your own branch, you're working on your own feature, and then someone asks you to review a pull request. You can just go to the pull request, you can open that branch in a new tab, you can do your review, check the dev servers, make sure that everything works, and then you can continue on your own feature branch. You won't have to think about doing yarn install or doing database migrations. And the cool thing is this works with everything. We could make this work with microservice, 8 microservices that run on Postgres with Redis, and there is a Joomla CMS somewhere in there. That would also work with this. And that makes it so interesting for me. Oh, and it takes 600 milliseconds. This was quite a list of things, and I think this is not the only thing about CodeSandbox projects that I find very interesting. There is a ton more. We have built it to integrate it in your existing workflow. We want to make it accessible for the whole team, so that also, for example, designers can use CodeSandbox, and Unity is a very big inspiration for us there. And we want to make it collaborative by default. So I want to very quickly show you through a pretty crazy demo where I kind of try to fill in everything that I haven't been able to show in a single demo. And let's see how it goes. So it's kind of like a one more thing, but in reality, it's more like a 7 more things. Okay. So, this is CodeSandbox, as I've shown you before. One of the big things is that we want to make development, let me refresh first, so that we have a very clean state. One of the things is that we want to make development itself more accessible. So, I think my network connection is a bit slow. That's the tricky thing, right? This is a development server of Next.js, so it's sending you like the full bundle of the development bundle, and we still need to add compression. Anyway, one thing is that we want to make development itself more accessible. So we have this little thing called the inspector. Let's say I want to actually change this code, but I don't know where that code is rendered. I can click on the inspector. I can, well, see all the components, but when I actually click on a component, it will open that piece of code directly here. And I can, for example, change it to, hello, welcome to world, for example. And this works on big projects. I'm now going to do something risky. I'm not sure, I haven't practiced this, but it would be super cool to show. We're actually looking at our development server running, we're looking at CodeSandbox itself. Ooh, okay. Okay, don't look. Eyes closed, everyone. Okay, let me try again. And don't copy this faster than I do. Okay. So we're actually looking at us developing CodeSandbox in CodeSandbox. This is the CodeSandbox repository with everything. But now we're looking at CodeSandbox in CodeSandbox. And what if you use this inspector in CodeSandbox? Like I can go to, well, you can change so much. I can do this test sandbox. Oh, I think the network is dropping out. Oh, there it is. And I can do something like, well, let's change it to hello repo. And then this one will say hello test sandbox. So it's cool to see that it works beyond, well, we can go crazy. We can say, what if we say, do I have time left? Because this is very unused. This is useless to demo right now. Look, all the folders are React Live. We should ship this. I can click on open PR, and it will automatically commit this with the right commit name. And if I click on it, talking about those, oh, okay. It runs commit hooks, as you can see, and it's angry about the fact that I'm not, well, that I don't use folder name. Can I just remove this? Okay, can you try again, please? It's now running the commit hooks, and then it will open a new window for me with the PR. But we also want to integrate it into existing workflows. And let's say you're used to your own code editor, which is very understandable. I'm kind of married to VS Code at this point. So when I click open PR, I think, do you also all have that when you see a template, you just remove everything? And Alex, you can review this. But I'm also used to my own code editor. So what if I could use my own code editor? And so you have this button here called, oh boy, my coworker is in here. This is getting tricky. I'm hoping that he won't break anything. And it will now open in VS Code. And I will be able to use my own extensions. I will be able to use my own theme, my own everything really. And you can even see me here. Look, I'm connected twice. Once with VS Code and once with myself. And I can look at here and look at myself here. I can follow myself. And maybe if I am very smart, you can see my cursor. Well, you can collaborate, essentially. Console.log, hello. You can collaborate. So I could work, for example, in VS Code, and if I want to get quick feedback from someone else, then I can send them a link, and they can open it from within the online editor. I'm getting a bit nervous here because there's even another coworker coming into this. Now, this is the last part of the demo that I want to show because we have someone at CodeSandbox who's been working very hard on this, and I really want to recognize this as well. This is the real one more thing. So let's say I'm on the go, kind of standing here. I don't have my laptop with me, or at least I'm too lazy to go to my laptop. And I want to see what I've been working on. Let me go to the actual window of CodeSandbox. I can also open from the iPad. I can work from the iPad. We have a native app that allows you to open branches, well, you can see it here. It allows you to open really anything from within. I can open the command palette. I can search for files. Yeah, I can go to this jest config, for example. I have autocomplete. I even have terminals in here. Like, if I want to, I can start a new terminal, do some ll, ls, the famous commands to demo. Or do we have cowsay? I don't think we have cowsay installed right now. No, we don't. And again, I'm connected now 3 times. This is pretty funny because it almost looks like I'm a founder. I'm a manager of some sort. I'm watching them both. I have them. I am surrounding them with. Don't do any weird changes. So now I feel happy. Another one joined. So now I feel happy with the demo that I've given, and I'm far over time. So apologies for letting you stay longer. But thank you very much for watching.